once again, we are joined by Peter Morgan from Tech for Togs, and we've got some tech questions to ask, haven't we, Cam?
We have, yeah. Hi, Peter. Thanks for joining us, and we've had you on now for a couple of the shows, and we're talking about all tech stuff and tech questions, stuff that's really important to photographers, whether they're hobbyists or working professionals. We've spoken about how long people should keep their files backed up for. We've spoken about different backing up options of work. We've spoken about Mac versus PC. These are all things that that are important to us now. What I wanted to talk about mainly was about external drives and portable drives, because when it comes to backing up work, I back up my work on a range of different portable drives. So I have these small portable drives. I think they're all Seagate drives, little sort of palm-sized handheld drives that I'll go and buy, and I'll keep 2 or 3 in my bag. I've got them dotted about everywhere, so I can carry those around with me easily enough. And then I've also got some of the bigger portable drives, so sort of say portable drives, desktop drives, external drives that plug into the mains. Okay, and they both, the ones that I've got that plug into the mains are both 12 terabyte ones, and I still use those as portable drives. I keep one plugged in here at my office, which is the 12 terabyte drive, and I keep one at home, and I bring in the one from home to copy what I've got on my office drive, and then I take it back home with me. So I don't like the fact that I plug it in and out of the mains. It's probably not a good thing to do, but I don't do that all the time. So when it comes to these portable drives, what's, apart from, I guess, the file size that they can actually storage size, what's the main difference and the main benefits of these small portable drives that you can hold in your hand compared to the bigger ones that you would plug in?
I think portability is key, to be honest. First of all, thanks for having me back on.
No worries. No worries.
Thanks for inviting me to the bar, right? I think portability is key. And what we're really talking about here is making sure that things are backed up. So, you can, any type of backup is better than no backup. The cost implications of these smaller drives, you can buy a 4 terabyte drive for about 150 quid now, which you can store all your work on. The downside of them being that it's one copy. If you lose the drive, if you lose the drive, if the drive data on the drive gets damaged, so
you need to buy 2, basically.
Yeah,
and that's what I do. Every time my drive runs low, and I know it's coming and they're all backed up, and I've got to buy 2 more drives. One just mirrors the other, basically.
Yeah, that's right. And then once those cost implications start going up, you're then now looking at, okay, so I've got 2 drives. So have I got to copy the data from one onto one and then from one onto another? Okay, so there's a time implication to that. Okay. And then it's a case of, well, where does one go? Have I got to take that drive somewhere? So then you start looking at things like, well, if I'm going to spend £350 on 2 drives, is it not worth me looking at a NAS drive? We spoke about NAS drives before. Is it not worth me looking at something like that? So, and what are the implications of using that and then integrating that with a cloud-based backup? So I think the key thing is that every photographer works differently. There's no one solution to fit all. It just doesn't exist, because we all have different ways of working, different workflows, and we'll have different times of the day when we can do our admin. When we can, how much do we understand? How much work does it take to ensure that something is backed up? Is it something that we can do and automate? If it's automated, how do we check that things are backed up? It's not, it's not, good enough to assume. My dad always used to say, assumption is the mother of all. But quite rightly so, you know, you assume something's going to be backed up using your 2 drives, then you come to find out
Yeah.
those files gone.
Yeah.
And then, you know,
and I
wouldn't
think,
sorry.
sorry, go on.
I was going to say I wouldn't mention it if it hadn't happened to me. You know, and still continues to happen to me, much less so now because I'm much more prepared. But the other day, for example, I went to go and retrieve some data off a card that I'd used, an SD card that was in one of the cameras, and when I pulled it out, it caught on the camera and the clip snapped and it just stopped. I couldn't get it to work. If I hadn't had another backup, or another 2 backups in this case, that data would have been
You'd have been screwed basically. Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing I've come across this is where there are photographers. That sounds crazy, but I don't think they're even aware that portable drives even exist. They just store everything on their hard drive of their laptop,
computer,
of their desktop. Yeah, and that's it. Then they're wondering why the computer's slowing down, and and all of that.
I can testify that that's definitely the case.
But if you, but you know what, I know this because if photographers have gone out and bought a PC or a laptop and said, "Oh yeah, but I've got a terabyte of space in here, I can store everything on here." It's like, no, don't do that.
Well, one of the things, I mean, we were talking about expense when it comes to buying Macs. The laptop that I picked didn't have a particularly big hard drive because I don't need it, because everything is going to be on a portable hard drive. I don't store anything of any really importance on my hard drive. So that actually saved me a few bob as well, because I didn't go for the bigger hard drive. So
that's right, yeah. And
I guess you're forcing yourself to move that data from the hard drive. You know, when you've got no choice, that's the only choice, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you want your desktop or your laptop to be working as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And obviously, the more stuff that you've got stored on your laptop, if you've got files and stuff stored on your laptop or your PC on your drive, that's going to naturally slow everything down. So get rid of it all, and that's and I think that's a big thing that people do actually miss. They forget about that. They just store everything onto their hard drive, onto their computer hard drive, and so these portable drives and plug-in mains drives are really important. However, I've fallen foul of this several times. I've had so many drives that fail, portable drives that have failed, but I've always got backups of those. None of those are 100% reliable, and which I find really frustrating. I actually think they should be a lot more reliable than they are. So don't back everything up on one portable drive and think I've got everything backed up, I'm safe, because that portable drive, the next time you plug it in, may not pick up.
Yeah.
May not work.
One of the important things that you just mentioned was about storing all the. Sorry to come back to this, but it's quite an important point. Is storing everything on your internal drive, and people do say to me, well, I've got a terabyte's worth of space, why wouldn't I store it on there? You have to think of your computer system being like a library, and all the files and photographs and music are like books in that library. Imagine you walk into your local library and you've got 1,000 books in your mobile library. It's going to be significantly quicker for you to find the book that you want, than if you walk into the National Library Archive and there's 10 million books in there.
Yeah.
You'll be like, how the heck am I going to find what I want? Computers work in a much similar way, in that the fuller that your hard drive becomes, the more difficult it is to retrieve the files that you want quicker. And you can actually get to the point where if your hard drive becomes too full, it won't boot up.
Exactly, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing is again, I mentioned it on I've started to mention it sort of recently because I've been in the process of doing it, is about the businesses going more and more paperless. So when it comes to anything to do with Word documents or any spreadsheets or any sort of admin stuff, shall we say, then basically what we've been doing is we've been shifting that all over to Google Drive. We've been shifting it, we've been using Dropbox for ages as well. So anything apart from images now, we have all of that backed up. And the other great thing is if Mark, if we're going out to do a shoot and there's just me and you involved, or there could be 4 or 5 of us involved, there could be 15 of us involved in a shoot, I now set up a spreadsheet that we can all access that has got details of that job, and that's on Google Drive, so everybody can access that spreadsheet and everyone can see, here's where the shoot is, here's where we've got to be, here's the hotel information we're going to be staying at, here's the time that we've got to be on site. Everyone has access to all of this, and it means that we don't have paper trails. Everything we can go back and see, and everyone can comment, and everyone can make a comment on a spreadsheet, and we can all see it. These are all things to do with sort of making sure that your work is backed up somewhere else.
Exactly. And when you look at kind of portable drives and the reliability of them, just exactly like you were saying, you are relying on a piece of moving equipment, less so with solid state drives or SSDs, because they are like a flash memory stick. There's no moving parts in there. It's all, there's less things to physically damage if it gets dropped.
Yeah.
Whereas a traditional SATA or the disk type hard drives, normally found in desktop drives as well, if that's dropped, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Just as an example, so I had one of my clients had a disk that she dropped down the stairs with a hard drive. She was working upstairs, took her laptop downstairs, carried the hard drive in her hand, dropped it out of her hand, bounced all the way down the stairs, and it's the bill that she got for recovery was £680, and that's rebuild the hard drive in a hermetically sealed room, because you can't get dust in these things. Rebuild it, replace the broken parts in the hard drive, and then copy the contents of the old broken drive across to a newer drive. Because you have to rebuild the old hard drive to make it work before you even transfer all the information over to a new hard drive.
And what's the guarantee there after spending £680 that you get all your images back or all your files back?
That's right, because whilst all the data can be recovered, if there's a physical damage to the surface of a hard drive disk, you're not going to be able to recover the data on that. It's like a record having a scratched groove, so think of it that way. So portable drives, I do love them for their portability, ease of use, and pricing. But the downside for me is the fact that they are fallible. In that case.
So have to always back up your back up your drive, basically. Always back it up. Yeah.
The thing is, especially look at backing up on site if you're a photographer.
Yeah. So when it comes to backing up on site, then sorry, Kat, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, no, in actual fact, it's all relevant actually, Mark, for what you're going to say. Actually, was like anything else, there's good and bad, there's cheap versions, there's good versions and everything. I know that what I was going to say was, I see, again, because we work with so many different photographers, a number of times I see photographers who put out a portable drive out of their bag and it's not in a case. It's just the portable drive, that's it. And I was thinking, you need it in one of those zip up cases,
rugged,
case or something.
Rugged
that's right,
drives.
Or you, exactly, as Mark's holding up there. Or you buy one of,
guys can't see, but
or you buy one of those drives that that Lacey make that have got the rubber surround, around them, which are they are
drop proof.
Drop
when they are drop proof.
Right.
I mean, it's not something you want to put to the test either, but
I have to put it to a test. Lacey gave me one at the photography show, and they were like, "Yes, drop proof." So I said, "Thanks very much," and I just dropped it, and their faces dropped, and they were literally just like, okay, let's just show you that we can get the data back off this. And it worked perfectly.
That's cool.
But it's about being careful with them. It's about and making sure that you spend good money on these as well. You can go onto Amazon, you can find some real cheap stuff, and you think, I got this portable drive for £35, yeah, or £10 or something, whereas I spent 150 on one. It's how precious and it's how valuable that work is, and then obviously when you're carrying it about and you're going on site, this leads into what you were going to ask. That you go, as I said, I was out on a construction site last week, so and I took the drive out of my bag, unzipped it, put it into the drive, and then put it back in afterwards. And we had to be careful because where we were in a field where there was a lot of dust and a lot of muck going around everywhere and everything. So you have to be careful of things like that because these portable drives, you can carry them out on site. So Mark, that probably leads into
I mean, one of the things that me and Cam we do pipe on about, which we won't go into too much, is the fact that if you're shooting a wedding or you're whatever you're shooting, really, you should really be using a camera with 2 card slots, so one's backing up the other. I mean, we that's something that we both massively agree on. But backing up on site, other than that, I mean, there are options, I think, aren't there? So you're probably not going to have access to the cloud. Generally, you can't rely on that. But there are some other devices out there, aren't there, that can be quite useful for backing up what's on your cards to another device, just to basically cover your ass, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lacey, Seagate, all of these, the G Drive, they all have options that are rugged. I use the Lacey ones for the simple reason that they've survived the test, really, not just the photography show drop test, but just generally, being dropped on a stone floor, at a wedding venue when I'm typically trying to carry too much. So yes, but I think the important thing is that you back up. So that might mean, as an example, if you're a wedding photographer during the wedding breakfast, when the couple have sat down, maybe they've already done the speeches, maybe the speeches are coming up, but you have a window of time there to sit down and edit maybe 20 or 30 pictures for the bride and groom, for the evening guests to be able to see. We take that time to plug the cards with the data on it into a backup drive. Now, at the moment, I'm using a Lacey BOSS system. BOSS stands for Backup On-Set System. And it's basically one of those orange Lacey drives with a card reader built in.
Okay.
Now, the annoying thing is that Lacey have now discontinued this product, so you're only going to find it if you find existing stock out there, and if you can find them, they're expensive, but possibly one of the best pieces of tech that I've bought for my photography business, besides obviously cameras. Because you put the SD card in there, there's a button on the top of the device which is all rubberized. You press the button and it says copy card. There's a little screen on it that says copy card. You press the button again and it copies the contents of the card to the 1 terabyte drive inside. A 128 gig card will probably take just shy of a minute and a half to copy the contents across, so that there's my backup. Already I've got 2 backups with me having 2 cards within the cameras, but there's a second. So if somebody steals that camera, which is probably more of a possibility in Wales than anywhere else.
I don't know. There are some places in England I'll be very careful where I leave my camera.
But I've had it before now where I've been at a venue. I've put my camera down, turned around, and one of the guests has decided to pick my camera up, and I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? So they drop that, or sort of drunk guest drops that. And that's it. Those photographs are gone. So it's important that you back up. Now, you don't necessarily need to go out and buy a backup on-set system, which is quite expensive if you can find them anyway. Incidentally, they also did another version before this backup on-set system, which you might also be able to find, called the DJI Copilot.
Yes. I have one of those,
which had a 2 terabyte drive in it.
Yeah, that's right.
Instead of being that iconic orange, it was grey.
Yeah.
They had a 2 terabyte drive, which was a SATA drive, slightly slower than the solid state drives that's in the newer Boss systems, but worked in exactly the same way. You could even plug your phone into it, and it would act as a battery for your phone, because there's a mobile phone battery in it as well.
Yeah.
And it connects to the app that comes with the device, which allows you to then view the photographs that are on the device on your mobile phone.
Yeah, that was really good.
Cool.
I bought it, I think, not long after it first came out, because I thought it answered the question. It was great. But I just found it to be a little bit slow. It obviously moved on since then. And then there was an issue with folders and where it was putting images, and I wasn't quite sure. And I think I was having to press the button, it wasn't quite responding, and I think they upgraded it. But I actually do need to take it out again. I think I might just update. I might just put it back in, firmware update, and see if it works any better, because I've just got it in a cupboard in my office here. So I will get that back out again.
Very good.
Yeah. Now, so there's one thing I wanted to mention, and Mark, that was, you mentioned it about the SD cards. When you go out, and how important it is having backup slots. If you're a professional photographer, you should be working with a camera that's got 2 backup cards, 2 card slots with an overflow. Now, I don't want to talk about. We know the importance of that. We've mentioned it many times. Okay, but there's one thing I just did want to mention about that and the SD cards. And Mark, it's something that you do that I would never do, and I have never done. And you feel and you don't seem to have a problem with it. Okay. And that is that when I go out on a shoot, Peter, I don't know about you here. Okay. If you agree with Mark, absolutely fine. When I go out on a shoot, I've got my cards in the cameras. Okay. I will take my card out of the camera at the end of the shoot, put it into plug it in wherever I'm going to download it. Download the card, take the card back out of the card reader, pop it back in the camera. That's it. I'm done with the card. Okay. All I'm going to do is carry on shooting on that card, or in camera, I will format that card. I will delete everything and reformat that card when it gets full. So I've got another clean card. Now, Mark, what you do is you actively use that card to create folders, don't you? And drag images. You use that as a working SD card. Okay. Now, I find that really uncomfortable.
Hang on. Let because I don't think you quite understand what I do here. Actually.
Okay, yeah.
So one of the reasons why I do this is something I do in my studio. So, for example, if I've got, say, 4 or 5 shoots going on in my studio, what I do is I'll always have a backup. Okay, so the backup's always there in my camera.
Yeah.
But after every shoot, I will download them onto a hard drive.
Okay.
Now, what I always then do is when I plug in the hard drive, when I plug the card into the hard drive, it comes up. For me, it's a Canon camera, so you go into DCM or whatever it is, and then it'll go 100 Canon.
Yeah,
you click on that, and that's where all your photos are.
Yeah.
Well, what I do then, before I put it onto my computer, what I'll do is I'll put the name. I'll change that 100, that folder name from 100 Canon, whatever it is, to the name of the client, the session number, maybe the date, and then put that into a folder on my computer, which is also linked to that client.
Okay.
When it's downloaded, what I then do is I put that, because I've only used, if I'm using a 64 gigabyte card, I haven't used the whole card, right?
Yeah.
So I'll put that card back into the camera, and I'll use it for the next shoot. Now, what that does, as far as the camera is concerned, because I've changed the directory name of that folder, which is on the card, the camera can't read it.
Right.
So it's also a fail-safe check. If it says there's no image on there, and I know there's images on there, because you go to format and you can see the amount that's on the card, right? I know I've downloaded it.
Right.
That makes sense.
It does.
So if I see images on the camera, that means, right, I need to, before I format this card, I need to check and make sure I've downloaded it. If it says no image on there, because I've changed the directory, there are images on that card, but the camera can't read it, then I know that I have downloaded it and I'm free to format the card. So it's just a little system that I have to stop myself from deleting the wrong images.
Right. Okay. No, that's fine. But you see, for me, I would never. It's just me. I would never do anything to an SD card. I would never rename a folder. I would not create new folders in an SD card. I would never do anything. I would take the SD card out of the camera, download it on the card reader, put the card back in, and I'm done with it. Okay.
Peter, what do you
Because
think?
I always think
So-
that if you do anything on the SD card, anything like that, whether it might increase the chances of that card becoming corrupt or anything at all, anything.
But I
like
have a
think-
backup.
Right. Yeah, but even still, you don't want that card to become a corrupt card. Now that's just me. Somebody might say, no, you're just being overly precious. And if that's the case, then that's fine. But yeah,
So there's
Peter,
a couple of things.
Yeah, what's your take on that?
So there's a couple of things to consider here as well. The first is really that I don't think it's a bad idea to rename that folder, but don't then leave it on the card. Okay.
Right.
You can rename the folder, you can drag it in. Personally, with my workflow, whether I'm pulling stuff into the computer, I'll import into Lightroom and it gets renamed then. It gets put into a folder and the metadata saves the location, the date, time, which wedding it was, what venue it was. All of that gets stored within Lightroom anyway. Storing stuff on cards is not necessarily a bad thing, but once you start messing around with the folder structure, sometimes it can affect when you put it back into the camera. So it's like people who format their cards on their computer and put it in the camera.
I never do that.
Yeah,
No, I don't do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cards should. I know a lot of people who've done it. Yeah,
They do. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm like, you always format the card on the device that you're using it within, right? So personal preference, I don't think it's a bad thing, but I'm assuming there you're looking for folders. You're not looking in Lightroom for.
Yeah, that's correct. So, but basically, because I tend to edit at home rather than at the studio, so or on a different device, whatever. The computer I have in my studio is quite an old one, but it is purely for showing images rather than working on images. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'll edit in a different place. So all I'm trying to do really is download the folder.
I understand, yeah,
and put that on there. But the other reason why I do it is because I don't format the card straight away. If there is an issue there, then I can go back to the card and re-download it. So it's also a fail-safe for that too.
Do you know what I find is funny? Not about this, but just is the way we all work differently.
Yeah.
and how that it makes sense to all of us, right? And like I might think, oh my gosh, that's crazy, but for you that works. Cam's
Makes
looking
sense
at
to
you
me.
thinking,
Yeah.
my
What
God,
the hell is he doing?
What's he doing, right? But ultimately, because we've all adapted from different ways of working, it's about how you make it work for yourself. And I think trying to change too much in one go, it's like when you first go on a diet and you got to eat greens and you got to do this and do that. Incremental mini changes, when you're steering a ship to New York, you make incremental changes to get you there,
Yeah.
So that's the kind of way to look at it, I would think, is look, if there is a better way of doing this that is going to work for you, then look at that. But otherwise, if it's working for you, then stay with it. The most important thing is stuff is getting backed up at the end.
Yeah, well, that's it. I also think the other way where this came from is I have worked in studios where other photographers are using the same card.
Yeah.
So it's always, so you're entrusting that the other photographer is going to do a good job, or the photographer that's used the card before you.
Yeah.
So I know that if someone has downloaded and I'm
Get your own cards.
Yeah, well, if you're working, this is the time when I was working for a company and it wasn't my business, you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
So I know that. So when I picked up the camera and there was images there, I'd be like, okay, other photographer, have you downloaded these images? Because I can see the images on the camera. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and then that comes back to, again, customizing your workflows so that it works for you. And as saying earlier, there's no one solution that kind of fits everything, really. My workflow is going to be different to Mark's, as it's going to be different to Cam's, and ultimately that's there are fundamental things that are immovable. One is that you have to have a backup, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the important thing, isn't it?
Around that,
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, around that, then it comes down to workflow, how you work. I know when I walk away from a wedding, I've got at least 2, if not 3 copies of a file, because I've got one on the card, I've got one on the orange Lacy Boss backup drive, and I've got one on the computer when I've imported all the pictures temporarily to create a slideshow for the bride and groom. Those pictures, once they're backed up at home, they get deleted off that, because I don't store anything on the Mac. They are specifically there to run the slideshow for the bride and groom, so that the evening guests can get to see what's gone on during the day. And that's it.
Yeah, and I think one, as you said, there's one thing I want to finish off on is one we're saying that, you know, we all have our own way of working and everything, and I think that's fine. But for your process there at wedding, what we do, Peter, most of the time, because generally when we shoot a wedding, there's 4 of us that go out, so we've got photography and video, 2 photographers, 2 videographers. So what I tend to do is, because we don't have the time to back up before we all leave, because by the time we've finished, we all want to just go home. Okay, so we don't want to sit and wait while a card's being backed up and that type of thing. So what I tend to do now is I will take, because all of the cameras that we use, photography and video, they're all 2 card slots. Everything's backed up. We'll take out one set of cards. I'll give them to one of the team. That person will take all those cards home with them. Okay. And then I'll take one set of cards, and I know that I'll be backing those up. So I know that when I've left a wedding, although they've not been backed up on portable drives anywhere at that stage of actually leaving that wedding, I know that I'm not the only one that's got all of those cards, and I'm the only one that's got the images. They have actually gone off in a different direction as well somewhere, and I find that for me that's like real peace of mind. I think that's that works really well for me, because I'm always paranoid that one person has got all of the images and has gone away with them, because you don't know what can happen, you know.
Exactly. I mean there's lots of different ways of you know, there's lots of different ways ensuring that everybody gets access to all the files.
Yeah, I used to have that DJI Copilot when I was using it before. I'd have it on, you know, I'd leave the wedding and I'd plug it in while I'm driving, it's backing up.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then I think I'd take another card out. And then when I was driving, then I'd get lost with it. I think, oh no, which card did I back up? It was those sort of things. It's easily done. Okay, you do have a system, you know.
Yeah, but do you know how you'd know which card you backed up and what haven't?
No, but
if you change the name of the bloody folder.
That's right. But again, it all shows we all do something. We all do it differently, and some people go, "Oh no, I would never do that," or "This, I'll show you a much better way of doing it." You know, just find a system, as Peter, as you said, that works for you. But it's got to be an efficient process as well, and a reliable process as well. And my thing is to do with keeping it simple, but making sure that you're not opening yourself up to something else potentially going wrong. And I think they're the biggest things. So
absolutely,
you know, good stuff.
And I mean, and that's all tech is really, you know, tech should, at its very core, it should empower us, not hinder us, right? You know?
Yes,
absolutely. Exactly. Excellent stuff. Right then, so thanks again, Peter, for dropping by. It's always an interesting conversation, and I wasn't expecting you to have to referee between me and Cam for a bit there, but you know, it's all good. And we look forward to having you pop round again. That'd be lovely, because I mean, there's so many other tech things that we'd love to talk to you about. I mean, we haven't even touched AI, which I think is a whole nother thing, which we would like to have a chat with you in the future.